our first special school board meeting for Monday, April 24th, 2023 to order. Our first meeting for tonight is our appointment process for a new board member. Mike Wade, one of our board members, resigned the board in February. And so the board made the decision to hold this appointment tonight, just prior to our reorganization meeting, so that the newly appointed board member will be able to be part of that full process of reorganization, be able to provide input on what committees they're interested in, potentially officers' positions, et cetera. So we have received 3 applications. We also sent out the questions that are going to be asked of the applicants out to them this past week, as we have done. And so what we will be doing is the applicants will be coming up front. Board members will be asked to be seated back in the gallery so that the attention of the public, the community, can be on our applicants. Corey, our superintendent, will be asking the questions from the podium. This will be run, if people are familiar with the League of Women Voters forums, it will be run pretty much in the same way. Each applicant will be able to give a 2-minute opening and closing statement, and then we will have a series of questions. There's been a random draw ahead of time with the superintendent, and she will let people know about that so that we make sure that not the same person is answering the same question first, second, or third. So there'll be a rotation. Once that process is fully completed, the applicants will be asked to go out into the gallery. Board members will be asked to come back up, and we will conduct the voting process. I'll mention this when we get to that point, and that the first top vote getters will advance unless on the first round of voting an applicant receives a majority of the votes. Tonight we have 8 members here. That would be 5 votes. So if any board members have questions or applicants have questions, please feel free to ask about those as we move through the process. So I'm going to note we've got our regular public access to meetings. People are able to be here this evening in person. They are also able to be here. We are live streaming on the web. I am going to ask Amber to call the roll.
Ms. Erler?
Here.
Mr. Robbie?
Here.
Ms. Portson?
Here.
Ms. Bushman?
Here.
Ms. Rano?
Here.
Mr. Pope?
Here.
Mr. Kowalski?
Here.
Mr. Summers?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great. I think, did you call me?
Yep.
Oh, I'm here. Okay. So we will now, if I can ask board members to head out, and we will ask the applicants to come up front.
Days I don't dare turn it off.
No, I did not have it before I did it, to be honest.
Hey, Max, you didn't mention sport of
Oh, it's still 2 top advance. Yeah, 2 top advance.
Okay, so first of all, I'd like to take just a couple minutes to thank the 3 of you for your interest in being interviewed tonight for our current open position. So it always warms my heart when we've got people in the community that are interested in serving on our board. So thank you very much for that. As Meg Erler had indicated, we have 6 questions. We've got time for an opening statement, a closing statement. Those 2 we will allow for 2 minutes, and then we will allow for 1.5 minutes for each of the questions. Chris Nyman is going to be our timekeeper. He will put up a yellow sign with 30 minutes to go, and then the red sign when time is up.
30 seconds, you mean?
Thank you. 30 seconds. What did I say?
I mean, we could do
30
30
minutes.
minutes.
30
I
seconds.
can do 30 minutes.
30 seconds. Thank you. We did do a random draw, and this is the order. Chris Scott will start with the opening,
Of course.
and then Catherine will go next, and Miguel will go after that. Then when we get to question 1, Catherine will start, Miguel will go next, and then Chris, and then starting with question 2, Miguel will go first, Chris, and then Catherine. Any questions? Okay. With that, we are going to go ahead and start with Chris. You get to start with the opening statement.
Okay. Well, thank you for having this. This feels a little bit like taking a test for your driver's license when you've been driving for 50 years. You've done all of this, but thank you very much. So, first of all, I'd like to say, when this opening came up, I didn't think or know if I would even put my name in, but, I thought about, would this be a good thing? Would I be a good candidate? And then something happened that I truly did not expect. I started to hear from people all over the community. Phone calls, emails, running into people, and they asked, will you put your name in? You're going to put your name in. What do you think? And I said, well, I don't know. Let me think about it. Let me look at the possibility of my doing that and if it would benefit in any way the board or the district. So I guess, having been elected by the community 7 times without putting out a sign or a Facebook page or a website, anything like that, I thought most of the people in this community know me from the school district because I love supporting students and doing the work, and I've done it for a long time. And for me, it was a joyful thing to do. And so that's really important to me. And I also know the 4th person who had put the name in, who I'd never met, he told the district that he wanted a viable candidate in. And when he saw my name on the list, he pulled his name off. He said, now I feel comfortable. So those are the things, those people saying to me, please continue, please do this. You've been such a valuable asset to our students, to our parents, to our community. We want you to continue if you'll consider it. So I did tell a couple of them, give them my word that I would at least put my application in. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you, Chris. Next, Catherine.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kate Gottwald. Thank you for your time this evening considering me for this seat. I think I am a new name to most of you, so I'd like to just share some quick background info. I'm originally from Park Falls. I graduated from UWSP and moved back to Stevens Point about 10 years ago. My husband and I have 2 young children. Our son is in 4K, and our daughter is in 2nd grade at Madison. As a family, we love board games, reading, gardening, spending time in Schmeekly, on the Green Circle Trail, and at the library and local parks. I've worked in talent acquisition for 10 years and in several higher education roles before that, going all the way back to a work-study job at the UWSP admissions office. I currently work remotely from home for The Standard, an insurance company based in Portland, on their talent acquisition team. I wanted to share just one little piece of trivia about me as well. Back in high school, I was a member of the parliamentary procedure team in FBLA, the Future Business Leaders of America, and competed in that category at the National Leadership Conference and also passed the exam to join the National Association of Parliamentarians at that time. I admit I was not convinced that that experience would ever be relevant in the real world, but I'm sure I have my old copy of Robert's Rules around somewhere if I need to dust it off. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Miguel.
Well, I'm Miguel Campos. Thank you all. Thank you to the board and the district for hosting this and for everybody watching online. Some of you may know me. I've run for the board seat for the past 2 terms. I haven't made it yet, but I don't plan on quitting anytime soon, and I heard this position came up, and after licking my wounds for a little while and sucking on my pride, I also had a similar experience to Chris. I had a lot of people reaching out in support to tell me that, encourage me to throw my hat in here once again. This is about the kids. It's not about winning or losing election. It's about keeping moving forward for the district. I have to remember why I got into this for the first place. As a father of 2 kids in the district that will be here for 10 years, I think I'm well suited to move forward, to move this district forward. I have a vested interest for the next 10 years, so I'm asking you all to consider me for this position. Thank you.
Thank you, Miguel. Question number 1, we will start with Catherine. The question is, what unique value will you bring as a member of the school board?
So first of all, being a parent isn't unique, but I think it's important for our community to continue to have strong representation on the board from families with children currently enrolled in our district schools. I've been on the board of directors for Community Child Care Center since 2016, and have served with other local nonprofits, including the Portage County Breastfeeding Coalition, La Leche League of Stevens Point, and most recently as treasurer and social media chair for our local Wild Ones chapter. Working remotely from home for the past 10 years, the teams I've worked with have included people from across the country and the world. I'm comfortable listening to different ideas and appreciating the perspective and background that everyone brings to the table.
I will repeat the question, and this is Miguel's turn. What unique value will you bring as a member of the school board?
This was a unique question as well. There's a lot of people in the room today, and you all have a lot of different values that you bring to the board, which is why you got elected to the position. For myself, over the past 2 years of running, I ran on the idea of balance, and for me, I believe my commitment to creating balance and everything I do is a unique value which I think will help serve this board well. Right now, we live in a society where politics and social media and personal opinions have a stranglehold over many communities' ability to engage in productive and respectful debate and opposition. I think someone like myself, who is willing to respect another's point of view and actively engage in constructive dialogue, albeit sometimes in disagreement and opposition, is increasingly rare, and I believe it is both a unique value and a necessary one to move our society and this board forward.
Thank you. Chris, what unique value will you bring to the board as a member of the school board?
Is that the environment one, or?
It's question number 1.
Oh,
What
I'm
unique
sorry.
value
I'm sorry,
will you bring
right.
as a member of the board?
Okay, I'm sorry. So I think my service over the years, the decisions and the great things that I've been able to be a part of, really make a difference. I would be, right now, with where the board is, 2 relatively new board members, 2 brand-new board members, the possibility of change in leadership, and the upcoming referendum, and also the budget review. I've had a lot of experience in working on referendums that have passed and referendums that have failed. And it's a really scary thing when that happens. But having the knowledge, the history, and the experience, I just believe that I believe that I can bring what we've had, and that is a board that is stable, a board that will work together, and also able to help and mentor some of the board members who are new. And even the 2 newer ones, Dennis and Jen, even though you're very accomplished and that there are so many things as being a board member that you're not aware of. Last year, I don't think either of you realized that when you vote for officers, that's public information. And I think you were surprised. Well, there's hundreds of other things being on a board member versus being an employee or someone who's accomplished that I can help with.
Thank you, Chris. Next question, we'll start with Miguel. How has your background and experience prepared you to be effective in an environment that holds diversity, equity, and inclusion as core to our mission and values?
Well, for those of you that don't know me, I actually come from a pretty diverse background myself. I am both a Hispanic American, a father who still speaks fluent Spanish. I'm also a member of the Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan tribe of Chippewa Indians on my mom's side. My parents One's from Texas, one's from Michigan, met in the military. I was actually born in Odessa, Texas, but moved to the Wausau area in the 80s. And being so foreign to that area, I can fully appreciate the value placed on respecting the many variations of new learners that are coming into our district and into our community. Having been one of those learners myself, I understand that value on a more personal level. I've also spent the past 3 years in my career as a local ambassador for DEI-related work as part of our company's global diversity efforts. And on a local level, I currently serve on the county's Diversity Affairs and Inclusivity Committee, seeking to ensure that our county is recognizing the demographic and cultural additions in our community, or to our community. I believe my personal and professional experiences provide a balanced perspective.
Okay. Chris, how has your background and experience prepared you to be effective in an environment that holds diversity, equity, and inclusion as core to our mission and values?
First of all, I should mention that our mission, prepare each student to be successful, I was part of a board that talked about that mission and what it was going to include. And there were a lot of discussions about how do you define success. And over the years, this was a long time ago, how that has changed is just tremendous. Our student enrollment has such an increase of minorities, of marginalized students, poverty in our community, families are struggling with that. Even though our looking at that learning gap, our teachers, our staff have been given tools to deal with a lot of these things. But when you go into a school and you don't know anything about someone's heritage or identity, you can't, or culture, it's really difficult to say, here are rules for you to success. Those rules need to be changed and looked at. So one of the things I want to say is I've worked in Denver with hearing impaired students. That student was completely different, and we modified her schedule in the classroom to make sure, not that she had everything that everyone else had being equal, but the equity portion of it, modifying her work. I also grew up with a lot of kids in school who came from all different countries. I actually helped a student who came from Greece, because my mom was Greek, to work with that. So I understand how much those differences make a difference.
Thank you, Chris. Catherine, how has your background and experience prepared you to be effective in an environment that holds diversity, equity, and inclusion as core to its mission and values?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion are core to my personal values, and I believe everyone in our district deserves to be supported and safe, being their authentic selves. I write to my legislators on issues that are important to me, including those related to DEI. I donate to organizations whose missions include advocacy for DEI initiatives and the empowerment and protection of marginalized people. I participate in several employee resource groups with a focus on DEI. In my current role, I've worked on projects to elevate DEI, including allowing candidates to provide their pronouns on our job application, adding gender options in addition to male and female on our job application, and increasing the visibility of our process to request accommodations. I believe the culture, policies, and actions of the school board and its members should help to ensure that all students and staff are embraced and valued for who they are and are able to fully participate and grow within our schools.
Thank you, Catherine. The next question, we will be starting with Chris. Chris, please list the top 2 issues you feel the district is facing.
So our structural deficit, having not received additional per pupil funding in the last 2 years, an increase, has really been difficult. It's going to force us eventually to go to referendum. Over 60% of our budget is salaries and benefits. If that referendum should not pass, and I've been involved in one that didn't, here's what you're looking at. It could mean cuts in programs. It could mean increased class sizes. It could mean cuts in positions. I just feel that it's really important that we look at that and realize what could happen. The next one would be our social emotional impact on students and families and staff, because it has taken over such a large part of our district. It's caused added even more changes because of society, social media, and it's just given so much stress, especially after COVID. So I think it's really important that those two things are dealt with. In my own personal life, which makes it really personal to me, I had family. My mom had a mental illness, bipolar, and my sister, who had her PhD, was working on helping students, and a year later had such severe depression that she committed suicide. So that social, emotional to me is huge.
Thank you, Chris. Catherine, list the top 2 issues you feel the district is facing.
First, the need to provide competitive wages that fairly compensate our teachers and staff. The positive influence and impact of good teachers and staff is vital to our community. We must support our teachers financially so they will happily choose to pursue their profession by joining and remaining in our district. Second is the upcoming budget shortfall and need to pass referendum. With unreliable funding from the state, our community will need to approve a referendum in 2024 to ensure the continued successful operation of the district. It will be imperative for the board to be united in this effort and the explanation to voters of budget projections and the need for the referendum to be approved.
Thank you, Catherine. Miguel, please list the top 2 issues you feel the district is facing.
Teacher retention and financial stress, I think, are the 2 top issues. Demographic shifts are leading to just less teachers going into college, so we're just going to have less teachers coming out pretty soon here. Low pay, increasingly political environments that are deterring teachers from entering the field altogether or leaving the field altogether. Better financial gain at alternative jobs is pulling teachers out of districts everywhere. That's not just here, it's everywhere. And it's not just this field, it's a lot of lower paying fields. People are leaving for higher pay jobs. Increasing competition among districts, both public and private, are also affecting teacher retention. Again, not just here, but in districts all over the nation. High inflation, loss of students, COVID costs, increased programming, and their associated costs, and certain political decisions have all exacerbated the financial burden on many districts. The next 5 to 10 years are going to be difficult financial times and we need to ensure we have many viewpoints on how to best weather this storm together.
Thank you, Miguel. Moving on to question number 4, we will start with Catherine. Catherine, please share an experience where you strongly disagreed with a decision made by a group you are a member of, and how did you handle that moving forward?
All right, so several years ago, some new technologies began emerging in the talent acquisition world, where instead of candidates completing a phone screen with a recruiter, they could complete a one-way interview by accessing an online platform where they would see the screening questions and record their answers. A member of the recruiting team would then listen to their answers and determine if they would move forward or not. My initial reaction to this process was that it sounded awful. It felt incredibly impersonal to me, and it didn't give candidates the chance to ask questions as would happen in a typical phone screen. So moving forward, for any client team that I was on that had this platform in place, I pushed to make it optional. We could give candidates the choice to use it, but we needed to provide them the opportunity to schedule a normal phone screen with a recruiter if that's what they preferred to do. This felt like a fair compromise because it removed my own negative opinions about the technology from the picture. If someone wanted to use it, they were welcome to, but it was important to me that it needed to be a choice and not the only option to continue moving forward in the application process.
Thank you, Catherine. Miguel, please share an experience where you strongly disagreed with a decision made by a group you were a member of, and how did you handle it moving forward?
Sure, I had to think about this one for a while, but then it hit me right away, getting called back to the office after 2.5 years. So during COVID, my employer required everyone to work from home for the better part of 2 years. We were one of the first companies to start, so we had like an extra month home from work over a lot of companies because we were global. And as it turned out, this new arrangement was very well received. But once COVID died down, the executive team called on everybody to return to the office 4 days a week after having been at home for 2.5 years. And this did not go over well with myself or any of my colleagues. There was a very small amount. So I ended up being part of several meetings with local leadership and eventually our global leadership to better understand their thought process and to share and air out our grievances and logic as to why we should be allowed to work from home for more than once a week. We had a lot of good conversation, a lot of good debates. We did end up having to adhere to the 4 days in the office, but I appreciated the respect given to those who spoke out against the return to the office, and I was happy to have been able to respectfully disagree with the leadership team while still being able to accept the outcome that I did not like, but we were able to move forward again.
Thank you, Miguel. Chris, please share an experience where you strongly disagreed with a decision made by a group you were a member of, and how did you handle it moving forward?
So this one just kind of jumped out at me as something I remembered. I've worked with a number of boards, a number of board presidents, and a number of superintendents. And over the years, there were things that would happen and decisions that would be made, and there wasn't a record. So there wasn't that rest of the story that people want to have. So one of the things we had was recording closed session meetings. And the majority of the board members decided we should not be recording those meetings. And I disagreed because as you change superintendents and as everything changes, you've got these major decisions that were made, and all you would have is this was the vote, but no rest of the story. And these were really important decisions that were made in closed session. So I totally disagreed. I understood the concern of having that, but I thought the concern of not having the information that led to these decisions was really important. But when I realized that I was in the minority, I understood that's democracy, and that's what happens. And so it was like that, and I was fine with that. Once that decision is made by the majority of the board, you move on, and I did.
Thank you, Chris. Moving on to question number 5, we will start with Miguel. Miguel, is there a particular issue that motivates you to serve on the board?
Well, I can't say there was a single issue that motivated me to serve, but if I have to choose one, it's definitely teacher retention, and here's why. I chose teacher retention because so many of the district's outcomes are contingent on the successes of great teachers. Everything from student outcomes and their appreciative parents to more financially supportive taxpayers to student retention and even legislative policy. Moreover, the monetary incentives and fringe benefits needed to attract and retain top teaching talent require the board's decisions to be laser focused on excellent fiscal responsibility, open communication, and community engagement to achieve this goal. I see teacher retention efforts as the fulcrum for many of the future decisions that this board will make.
Good. Thank you, Miguel. Chris, is there a particular issue that motivates you to serve on the board?
You know, I've always served with the student in mind. And in today's world, it's so important for students to have every opportunity that the district and the community can support. We're in a global community now. They're world citizens. I think everywhere I visited, all over the country and out of the country, I'm immediately talking to parents with kids and asking them how are they doing. I think one of the things that was really important is when I served here on the Human Health and Growth Committee, I never realized how much of an education our students are getting, life skills they are getting, that I never got. My son graduated from here. I'm not sure that he got it. That's the world we live in, and I think it's really important that we provide students with every opportunity, raise the level of their education, so that then when they leave here, they've got the tools they need, not only to move forward right away, but to build on those. And that's the one thing in the world that no one can take away from these students is their education, and something that they can always build on. And in today's world, they really need it. When I graduated, I didn't have any of those skills. I have to go back to school now, and watching our teachers in that Health and Human Growth Committee, listening to them, how they were teaching those students, I literally had goosebumps and said, that's what these kids need, and that motivated me.
Thank you, Chris. Catherine, is there a particular issue that motivates you to serve on the board?
No, there wasn't one particular issue that motivated me to want to serve on the board. Selfishly, the main reason I'm motivated to serve is that my kids will be students in this district for the next 13 years. I want them and their classmates to be in schools that are safe and welcoming, to have qualified teachers who love their jobs and are properly compensated for the value they bring to our community, to be challenged by appropriate curriculum, and to continue to grow every day into intelligent, empathetic, and caring members of society. None of that is possible without a school board that values the role of public education and values the people responsible for bringing it to life.
Thank you, Catherine. And on to the last question, and we are going to start with Chris. Chris, if you are appointed to the school board, is it your intention to run for your seat in the April 2024 election?
It would be my intent to do so if I'm able, but that would make me research if the community wanted me to do that, if they wanted me to continue. You know, the people that contacted me were people from our district, from the university, from the business community, all of those people that were asking me to please continue the stability, working together in the last, I don't know how many years, because that had such an effect on students and staff and teachers and the taxpayers, if you have a stable board. So I would absolutely consider it if I'm still around and healthy and able to, and people want me to do it.
Good. Thank you, Chris. Catherine, if you are appointed to the school board, is it your intention to run for your seat in the April 2024 election?
The 2022 election felt mean-spirited and hostile toward candidates running for school board. And honestly, it turned me and probably many others off from seeking elected positions. While this year's election cooled off, I'm not confident in knowing either way whether that was an exception or the start of a trend. At this point, I can't say for sure that I'd plan to run for this seat in 2024, but if appointed to the board, I'd like to give myself the chance to be in the role for a minute before being confident in making that decision either way.
Good. Thank you, Catherine. Miguel, if you are appointed to the school board, is it your intention to run for your seat in the 2024 election?
Yes. I am absolutely going to be running next time. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Miguel. Now on to the closing statement. You have 2 minutes, and Chris will again give us a 30-second warning. And with the closing statement, we are going to start with Catherine.
All right, thank you to the board for your time tonight and for considering me for this role. While I understand that the board and district citizens may be much more familiar with Miguel and Chris than me, I hope that you feel my recent willingness to apply for this role conveys the genuine interest I have to serve my community in this capacity.
Thank you. On to Miguel.
Thank you again to the board and the community. It's been a great learning experience over the past 2 years running for the board proper, and this is yet another experience for me, and I keep learning along the way. And I really want nothing more than to serve my community. I've been serving my community both in Wausau before I moved here and now for the past since 2004 in all kinds of different roles with the Salvation Army, the Community Foundation, the Lions Club, through my work efforts, Bootstrap, all kinds of organizations. And I like to do that because I like to set an example for my kids and for my kids' friends and stuff like that. I mean, I had my parents, when we moved to Wausau, we didn't know anybody, so my parents were extremely active in absolutely everything, and that's how they got to meet everybody, and that has definitely been a part of my life, and I think this is a good thing for my kids to see, and I have a vested interest in what my kids are doing for the next 10 years in school, and if I want to be a part of the solution or be a part of making this an increasingly great district, I want to be directly part of it. Just like when I was telling you earlier about the COVID situation, I just went right to the people that make those decisions. It's easier to do that sometimes. Sometimes you have to get bumped back and you got to work your way back up there. But I intend to fully serve the community as best I can. And again, as I've stated many times, both here and at the League of Women Voters Forum, I'm open to discussions with people that I have opposing views with. And that's going to happen, and I don't have a problem with that. So I thank you again for all your time.
Thank you, Miguel. Chris?
So thank you, everyone. I think you have 3 good candidates here. I think it's great. You know, over the years when I was on the school board, I can't say my son was the happiest person in the world. He is now teaching, an English teacher in Whitefish Bay. And he understands how important this role is to everyone, to students, to staff, to community. I think when you get to a certain age, you understand that having a purpose and having that purpose bring joy to your life. This district has been like a family to me. I have done nothing but be joyful in so many different ways. Not everyone can do this, but being part of things like PODS, the 4K, with our community partners, the Life Skills Center, being part of online learning, being part of the pay plan, all the things that led us to where we are today. And there are a lot of things coming, and I would really like to continue for this next year to be a positive influence on the board and the community, to continue that for all the things that will be coming. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. And once again, thanks to all 3 of you. If not appointed tonight, I hope that you will consider running again in the future, because as Chris said, I think we've got 3 quality candidates. So thank you very much for your time. At this time, I'm going to ask for the candidates to go back to the audience section and our board members to come back to their seats.
Sit here, all right? I don't want you to feel ostracized. You sit all by yourself.
That looks better, G. The balance is a little low.
Yeah.
Exactly what I thought.
So I will note the obvious. We have 3 wonderful candidates. On behalf of the board, and board members are free to speak up. Very grateful for your interest, very grateful for your answers. For sure it's a lot easier this time around. I think the last appointment we had 17 applicants, and I think it was online.
That's online. It was 3.5 hours too.
So it was, I'm just saying it was a somewhat rigorous process. That being said, we will be utilizing the same process that we have used for voting, and I want to lay that out. Board members will be receiving paper ballots for each round of voting. You are asked to put on the ballot who you intend to vote for, as well as your initials. Once the vote has been taken, these ballots become a member of public record, and they are subject, the public has the ability to be able to take a look. Anyone has the ability to take a look at who voted for who, but it's important for all of us to understand that up front, and to also for the community to understand that that information will be available for them after this evening. We will be looking for, we're going to need a majority vote, and there are 8 of us here tonight. Dennis, you're still there, right?
I'm still here.
All right, perfect. So Dennis is on phone if for members or for members of the public, but is in attendance. We will be looking for a vote of 5. The top 2 vote getters will advance. So, for example, if we had a 4-4 vote, those top 2 would advance. If we had a 4-2-2 vote, all 3 will advance. And then we will, again, depending on that, we will then have to start again. G, go ahead.
How does Dennis vote?
Dennis will be voting by phone with Amber. So Amber and Corey will be handing the voting. So once we all vote, just fold your piece of paper. Corey's going to be walking around grabbing all of those. She will be bringing them over to Amber, who, thank you very much, is standing out and helping us tonight because Carlin is on a much-deserved vacation. And then Corey, I think, will be coming up to the podium to announce the vote. Does anybody have any questions at all? Once we have a majority candidate, then our work today will be done. I do want the public to be aware that we will then be formally, that individual will be taking the formal oath of office between this meeting and our next meeting, and will be being then seated for our next meeting. So I would ask everyone to cast their vote.
We do not have a majority, but we have two individuals that are the top two vote getters, Miguel and Chris.
And could you state what the vote count was?
Miguel, 4, Chris, 3.
And Catherine?
1.
Okay, all right. Thank you. So we will then have a second round of voting. There should be pickles or olives in there. Do they say how much money is made at Wine and Cheese? I suppose it takes a while. Oh, sorry. I was just curious.
We have a majority. Miguel, 5, Chris Scott, 3.
Thank you. I would ask all candidates if you're able to stay around after tonight so the board members can chat with you for a little bit, that would be wonderful. So we have received a majority vote. Miguel Campos will be seated as our new duly appointed board member. And do board members have anything they'd like to say?
Well, thank you all for your time.
Welcome.
Really talented group. Yes. Well put.
So I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Barb, second by Jen. Any discussion or questions on the motion? All in favor with aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed with nay? We're adjourned.
Oh, so the next one starts at 7?